I always laughed about email marketing because I would call it the cockroach of marketing. No matter what you do, it just won't die, right?
Good.
And it proved it just time and time and time again.
Hi, I'm Ludwig, host of the Law Firm Brand Builders podcast and CEO of Practice Made Perfect, where we've managed more than $500 million in marketing for law firms across the country. Happy to be here and provide value however we can. Now back to the episode.
And today I have Ron Latz on the line with me. Ron's the founder of Legal Phoenix, a marketing advisory firm helping law firms make smarter growth decisions. And if anybody knows him, they also know he's very active on LinkedIn. And that's how I know him, because he posts a lot of stuff that I usually just completely agree with. So it was the perfect guest for me to have on so we can talk shop. Ron, I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for extending the invite. I told you, I believe, after you had reacted or commented on one of my posts, I'm like, who's this guy? Like, now sharing fresh perspectives on LinkedIn. It's so refreshing to not have the usual suspects always dominating the feed. So love the background. We've connected and I'm looking forward to the conversation, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was fun whenever, I was in house, right? And then I was starting to go back out of house. I'm like, I got to start posting on LinkedIn more. And a lot of people started reaching out to me. It was amazing because I've never been that active on LinkedIn. So it's really an interesting place if you're posting things that you truly believe in, that are tried and true, and that you have the experience in. And so I found a handful of people I love to follow, and you're certainly one of them. But I want to jump into one of your posts. You sent me a few things that you wanted to talk about, but I always like looking at everybody's post and jumping into what they talk about most. And one of the ones that popped up to me was legal marketing myths. And you had listed 5 different legal marketing myths, and you wanted to set the record straight on them. Do you remember what those were?
I mean, well, there's no, what lawyers get cases online or are on social is probably got to be one of the top ones on there. I have a few different variations of that post.
Yeah, you had your first one was myth 1. If you're a good lawyer, you don't need marketing.
Yeah, right. You get all your business from referrals. There's no other way to grow the firm, acquire new cases. It's just we do good work, which is great marketing. And people tell their friends, their family, their colleagues. You create this awareness and this loyalty, right? People are advocates for your brand and they want to shout your name from the rooftops. That's great, right? But those other firms that are giving your name out, right? They're probably sharing 2 or 3 other names along with it. And more sophisticated buyers, they do their due diligence, they dot I's, they cross their T's, and they go and check you out online. So if you don't have a professional or just a polished representation of yourself that is complete, has a headshot, a link where they can find you or call you, you're probably going to miss out on a few opportunities, I would think.
Yeah, I would say one place where I think it's not a myth, and you'll probably see this as well, as the older guys, right? It's something I've done forever, right? I just relied on referrals. I did no marketing, and now I'm 60 something years old. I've had a good career. I'm definitely not going to do marketing now, right? I'm just going to continue with the referrals. And typically when I find someone who mentions they don't need to do marketing, it's because they're either further along in their career and they're not worried about growing anymore, or they've done so well over, say, a 25-year career. So they're still young in that instance, in their early 50s, maybe. That you're just like, I don't feel like building anymore, right? And for that person, I'd say it's probably a wise choice.
There's nothing wrong with maintaining the status quo. Like if you don't have growth aspirations and you don't want to continue to add new employees or bolt on to different locations or maybe even diversify practice area services, right? Like it's quite all right to continue to invest in the client experience, right? But some of the firms that you kind of alluded to and mentioned there, even if they want to hang it up, right? Even if they had a basic newsletter in place where they could drip or nurture on someone on a weekly basis just to have that recall and maintain top of mind awareness, I just think that you'd be able to, I'm sure they wouldn't turn down a couple more cases.
Yeah, no, and I agree. They certainly should be doing something like that. Because when I think of marketing, right, I'm thinking from their lens of, well, I'm not going to get on a billboard or do TV spots or do traditional style social media. Okay, well, Ron Latz, legal marketing myth number 2, my clients aren't on social media.
Yeah, no one gets business from LinkedIn or Facebook or social. Those are some of my favorites because what I try to do, and I used to have a swipe file where I just would take the screenshots of lawyers asking for other lawyer referrals to kind of prove the point. But then as
Yeah.
more and more people, we start to have conversations, and my clients or people that I'm connected with they'll shoot me a text message. They'll be like, hey, just got this case from wherever it was, Facebook, LinkedIn. And I just show the proofs in the pudding there. They
Yeah.
might not have started that way. And I can tell you from my own experience, that is not how I define success on LinkedIn. I don't look at lead generation as like my North Star. I just said, hey, if I can help one lawyer avoid heartbreak, frustration, save a couple bucks so that they don't get into a bad relationship where they're gouged on pricing or relinquish like literally all access to every tool or system known to man, that's my goal. And over 6 years, it's eventually produced opportunities and open doors that would have remained closed if I hadn't, put myself out there and hit publish.
Yeah. And, ultimately it does a lot of the same things that a good billboard or broadcast TV does, right? Most people aren't going to interact with your ads. It's as simple as that. The only place where I really interact with any type of posts is on LinkedIn. And that's because I feel guilty at this point, because if people are interacting with my stuff and I'm actively posting, I feel like I need to also do the same thing. But when I wasn't posting, I was one of those guys. I was on it all the time, LinkedIn, Facebook, and I always took in the information and I always found who I respected and what people I wanted to talk to. Should that need arise in the future for me, when I was in-house, I knew who I was going to, right? And I think the lawyer should be looking at it in that same manner. It doesn't matter if you get a ton of engagement, but if you're doing it consistently, I find that if you push out one video across 5 to 7 platforms, even if it's not the best video ever, you're probably going to get at least 5,000 views on that. Try to bring 5,000 people to your website through publishing one blog post, but doing nothing to try to get them there. But those people seeing it within a few days, right? It's almost impossible, right? It's not fully impossible, but it's almost impossible. And do you think that people are mixing up, or when they say my clients aren't on social media, what they mean is, I don't think social media works?
Some of them have that misguided approach, or like they believe the myth that that's not where people find lawyers, right? And I would agree that I don't think people are just doom scrolling looking to hire their next law firm because they got into an accident. But, right, depending upon, like, we work with a lot of personal injury firms. So let's take something with a longer life cycle or buying journey, like divorce, where you're going out there, you're doing research, you're trying to understand what options you have at your disposal, right? And if there is a very timely placed ad that's talking about the considerations or what you need to do financially or some support sources that you do engage with, they're probably going to maintain top of mind for you. And then when you go and do additional searches, now you're going deeper and just validating that they might be the option for you. But I can tell you, like, no one's engaging with that post, Al, right? The person that wants, they're not.
I call them the self-selection post, right? You're putting it out there to get in front of the right person at the right time for them to realize this is something for them to self-select into. Now, they're doing all of this almost subconsciously, but if it's use mass tort, for example, right? If it's a mass tort for the Roundup, right? So, I've used Roundup at my farm for a decade, right? Let me see what this is about, right? And it's finding that, and there's no better platform that finds people in that manner than social media, if the creative is done correctly. Like, we just took over a meta ad campaign for a law firm who had been running meta ads for quite some time, and just like, what are the results? Like, it's zero. We're just getting nothing, right? And when I did a live audit of it, and within 60 seconds, I said, well, here's the things that concern me. Here's the things I'd be worried about, from the creative to the frequency and reach of it, to the types of campaigns that are being run. I was like, let us test out running something different and see what happens. And sure enough, with the right creative, with the right targeting based on your budget, and if it's PI, when I say targeting, it's probably going to be more just zip code targeting, rec data targeting, because you might not have the full budget to target an entire top 50 DMA. It works, right? And even those people who've been in car wrecks, they'll self-select in, because it's just that their window of decision is always so much shorter, 4 days or less typically, for some to get that client. So yeah, you and I are on the same page on that one. Myth number 3, legal marketing myth by Ron Latz. More website traffic equals more clients.
Not always the case. It's got to be relevant traffic, Al,
Yeah.
right? Like we've run into situations where we had a very heavy hitting, it was a birth injury firm, and there was a university, a school out in the APAC region that was just using their website as basically part of their syllabus, right? There was so much information. It was viewed as more of a medical resource than a legal services website, right? So while everything was going up and to the right, it didn't necessarily drive the qualified or wanted opportunities in signed cases. So sure, there are a lot of things that some firms have done over the past couple of years now with AI. They just spun up, right? Thousands of pages of content, wasn't helpful, very spammy. They cannibalized their own efforts, and maybe they rode that increase for a short time, but then they fell off the crater, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's got to be right traffic, relevant traffic within your IC.
And I used to love seeing even those ones that like I knew I got 10,000 visits from, and I'm like, I'm not going to get one damn lead from this.
I know.
But it was fun to see, but it was fun for me to see because I knew all the other like money pages, things that were working well. I was ranking in the map pack for all my bottom of the funnel, local intent phrases, personal injury lawyer near me, car accident lawyer, insert city, work injury lawyer, things like that, where when I saw myself ranking in the map pack, I was like, all right, check, that one's done. Next one, right? Because I would rather get a few thousand visits. And it's all, when I look at that ranking profile, it is, I'm in the map pack for all these bottom of the funnel phrases, as opposed to getting 100,000 visits and it's all informational blogs. And
it's the same thing.
We're losing, most law firms are losing all of that right now anyway. You know, they've seen that trickle down for a lot of those informational based content because it was either low quality or there was better resources. And when Google did their algorithm updates, if it was something medical, right, they're more likely to go to a medical place now. So I think we have to like always find myself balancing the line a little bit, because some clients are so programmed into the traffic that I know like we had a great month, we had more leads, but for some reason they're looking at the traffic and you're like, well, why didn't the traffic grow? It's like, well, do we care about the traffic that much? And when they won't get off of it, at some point you get a little demoralized. Like, okay, I got to do something to get the traffic moving in the right direction, even though everything else is.
Well, that's when we pull card or the CRM and we look at cases signed and what the one or the close rate was. But it's the same thing as some of the social impressions, Al, where, you know, to your point, try to accumulate a certain number of impressions across a handful of social platforms. Quite frankly, if one of my LinkedIn posts got 50,000, 100,000 impressions, like all those comments and engagement, like that would almost give me anxiety at this point because I want to go and reciprocate like you talked about and respond to all these things.
And you know, it's probably like most of that probably is starting to hit too broad for you. And
no question.
And you know, it's wasting a good bit of the impressions for you and creating just a time suck. And with the social media impressions related to that, like that campaign I talked about that we took over. And when you look at the nuts and bolts of impressions, we're getting 4 fewer impressions than what that campaign was getting, but the impressions we're getting count a lot more. And that was a deliberate decision. I told the client, like, we're going to get less impressions, and that's not a bad thing because I want to get the reach and frequency at a right level and ultimately focus on the leads coming in and then ultimately focus on the cases that you're converting thereafter. All right. So Ron Latz, legal marketing myth number 4, probably my favorite one. Email marketing is outdated.
Yeah. Or doesn't work, or nobody opens email, or it's all going to go to spam. I mean, maybe if the content isn't exciting or entertaining, or your subject lines are weak, or you're not testing certain things out, your timing, your shipments. Listen, I do think you're sitting on a gold mine of data and information from years and years of clients that you have helped, right? They were going some of the most difficult moments of their life. They came to you, you got them the recovery, and then they just sit on top of the shelf collecting dust, never to hear from you again. So I believe that if you just keep the lines of communication open, have a weekly drop of information that will be helpful, your involvement within the community, like not braggadocious, hey, look at me, we've got job openings, we want super lawyers, but here's a couple things that are going to help you through your day to day if you are ever injured due to somebody else's negligence, right? Or this is what we're doing in the community. Here's how we're involved. Hey, come over to the carnival or to the fair. Like, we're going to be talking to people. Like, we actually live in this town, right? Those are things that people want to be updated on. And then again, even if they just see your name, open it and skim it, your firm name, that recall is just what you're looking for over and over and over again. So when the time does come.
I always laughed about email marketing because I would call it the cockroach of marketing. No matter what you do, it just won't die, right?
Sure.
And it proved it just time and time and time again. Whenever I was in house, we built out our list quite substantially. We had tons of past clients, tens of thousands, and that list got quite big. Then we started utilizing it more and more, and we did exactly what you said. We would do more interest-based stuff. One email that went out every week was Gordon's 5 good things. And we found like 5 good things to talk about, right? Good news stories, a good win for our clients, something in the community, a giveaway we're doing. And we just positioned it like that. But then every now and then, once a month, a reminder, hey, you or someone you know has been injured. Remember, we're here. We're your lawyers for life. It's free consultation. Don't hesitate to reach out. And I would hear from our intake director when we would send that one out. She goes, the email's working. Someone just called and said that it reminded them to finally call us, right? And so very important in my eyes. And one thing that always proved it for me was some people are going to love this, some people are going to hate it. When we did giveaways, right? The first thing we'd ever do right when we launched, we'd send out to our email marketing list this giveaway, a community giveaway, a bike giveaway, a big event. And that would give us hundreds of entries in the matter of an hour. And if people didn't read your emails, they're certainly not going to click through to it. And they're certainly not going to spend a minute filling out a really long form, because we would make the forms long. So that they would definitely, we knew that they were engaged. And it would end up being always a top 3 conversion tactic for giveaways for us. Yeah. So it's just, everybody should be using it. I think the hardest part is it's something that I like doing in house. It's hard to, you can outsource it, but it's just a little harder than in house.
It is. And the giveaway to build and basically support the growth of newsletter is one of the plays that we love doing, because instead of just going out there, right? Like, we have clients that will do brand sponsorship with like minor league baseball teams, or we have a client that does a sponsorship and a partnership with like a professional ultimate frisbee team, right? And those giveaways for field experience upgrades, better tickets, custom professional jerseys, all that stuff. It's not call for your free consultation in the middle of the ballpark. Like, that's not what, like, but if they're like, get a free jersey, sign up.
Another easy way to do it when you're doing some type of sign up that you're tracking on a landing page that I used extensively is, again, we would do more than just like enter these 4 things. It would be a little more extensive. And one of the last questions would be, have you or a loved one been injured in a wreck in the past year? Yes or no? If they hit no, then it's just, it submits and that's it. If it hits yet, if they say yes, it's a conditional form. And then ask another qualifying question. If they answer that correctly, it asks another qualifying question. If they answer that correctly, it asks them to opt in for us to contact them about it. And that the last giveaway I did, we got over 50 intakes that followed that conditional correctly, and we ended up getting 5 to 10 cases or so from it. From we spent money on this giveaway, right? So we're hoping that it was our attempt to go like, we know it's doing good for us, but man, it would be nice if we can have a few bits that we could just objectively track back. And that was the attempt to do that. And that alone made it go, okay, yeah, this is hands down worth the money we spent on.
Yeah. And that's a nice conversion there of just a newsletter, right? 5 to 10 out of 50. That's solid.
So Ron Latz, legal marketing myth number 5, last one, legal marketing can't be creative. I also love this one because creative is just my place to be.
It's tied of what I think, like messaging and positioning within law firm. I don't know what it is. It's just like creativeness is just outside. It's in another arena. No one wants to, I understand that they want to, again, ensure that they come off as professional, right? This is a very, right? They're going to take themselves seriously, but we can also have some fun with it. right? And I think that's the thing, the entertainment value, right? Like when I went out to Detroit and I was just driving around doing an on-site with a client, yeah, obviously, like a lot of markets, tons of billboards. Here's another LinkedIn post that I had out there. And they call out Top Dog and Morse for Morse had his mom and everything. And Top Dog, they're like, his videos, they're incredibly entertaining. I feel like he's talking to me. There's a lot of other boards out there, right? But those are the two.
Those are
Again,
two
there
that hit.
wasn't statistical significance here in the data set. I only had like 6 or 7 Uber rides. But
some things are just common sense, right? When I get off, if I'm one of those attorneys and I get off of a plane in my hometown and I go name the first PI lawyer and they say me, then I'm really I'm really happy by that, right? And what's funny about, like you say, you still want to come up, be professional and this and that. What the trap I think some people fall into because they want to be more creative than others and do some crazy outlandish things is, for the most part, many of these firms have built up into it, and many of these firms have slowly integrated in more creativity year after year. They slowly got more tongue in cheek, self-deprecating. And then so when you see that ad out there that you're like, what the hell? It like makes you scratch your head. You're missing the nuance of, yeah, but that was built off of 5 years of ubiquity for that firm and a perception that has already been built there, that now when he does that, it's looked at differently when he does it versus when this law firm down the road that's never built up that equity tries to do it. And that's something we would do a lot of. I mean, my favorite, I tell the story a lot. My favorite law firm commercial I ever worked on, it was one that I think I was being tested on too, was not much of a law firm commercial. It was about our 20-foot inflatable Santa that got stolen from the front of the office on the interstate in the middle of the night. And we ran right before Christmas, we ran a whole 10-day campaign about this thing that just happened, that we decided, hey, let's go ahead and just run with it, have fun, make people laugh, get people scratching their heads of this is an inside job. They're just doing this as a marketing ploy, right? It's like, no, we just had the foresight to think people are going to talk about this if we do it. And they already talk about us some. So it's not too off the wall for us to kind of go down this route.
Sure. Listen, I mean, as far as going out of bounds there, and yes, this was more of an inside job, but when Morgan went out and graffitied all of his boards,
yeah,
I thought that was a great move.
We did that too.
Everybody was talking about it. Everybody.
We did that too, and everybody talked about it, right? And sometimes, once one law firm does something that works, other law firms are going to copy it in their markets, and it's going to work. That's the funny thing. And there'll be people out there to go, oh, they just copied that law firm. So, yeah, but 99.9% of people don't know that because that law firm's not in this market, so it doesn't really matter. Well, so your next LinkedIn post that I enjoyed was legal marketing agencies that don't have your best interests in mind insist that your law firm must do X or your law firm must do Y. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a hammer and everything is a nail, right, you're always going to keep hammering that nail down. I think that, listen, there are plenty of agencies that will disclaim information like you don't have access to these tools, or you're not going to be delegated ownership to certain profiles, or this is how our reporting works. I think if you let the individual know up front what they are getting into, it's very different than pulling the wool over their eyes and then saying, we're not going to break out our fee from any channel spend. You're not going to be able to go into the tool to access the data, right? I do think also if you're going to SEO only agency and they come to you and say, SEO will solve all of your problems, it's probably just a little bit of a red flag, right? If they're not making any recommendations outside their, lane of subject matter expertise, I would just question whether or not, A, do they see all the pieces on the chessboard? B, do you know how they all complement each other? And C, are they looking out for my best interests? That's all. So when you have the Facebook shop say you only should do Facebook, and the ad shop that says only do Google ads, that's where, the spidey senses start going off. And I would encourage firms to ask some more questions.
Yeah. And you and I come from a unique background where, you've been so involved in more of the whole marketing ecosystem for so many law firms. And then I was in-house for a 9-figure law firm doing a large marketing budget where we did everything, right? You kind of see how it all works together. I see whenever I pull back something, nothing really changed because I have so many things supporting it. and I live in that world, right? Like with PMP, we live in I want to talk about the strategy, the goals, and how to get there. And yes, we could do most of that at PMP, but every now and then there's something where it's, I probably need to get some outside partners to help work on this particular project. But I believe in it so much, I'd rather you trust that we go in that direction than, hey, let me just run some more Google ads for you because it's easy. We make a general commission off of that. One thing I did hear you say though, agencies that don't give you visibility into your ad spend versus their fees. Do you
Yeah,
run
like
you run into some agencies like that?
my God, yes, it's still happening.
Yeah, I have. I must have just been so insulated because I worked in a couple agencies prior to being in-house. When I worked in-house, I had the foresight to go like, I wanted to see everything. I wanted to own everything. And I was like, if I don't have ownership of something, I'm not working with you, which it changed some of the relationships, and they did things for us that they didn't do for other clients.
Yeah.
But it blows my mind that there's like, because as a client, if I went to an agency and said, break this down for me, they didn't do it, I'd be like, I don't understand.
I don't either. And I've been active on LinkedIn for as long as I have. And I repurpose that post. I could probably do it daily and people will still get into the trap. But where it becomes even more challenging is that there is an agency out there that has this rollover policy with LSAs. And the challenge that we were having was on the accounting side is like, well, we don't know what wasn't spent to know what should be rolling over into the next month. So then when we finally had all the exported reports over a 6-month period, there was 1 month out of those 6 in which all months were underspent and none of them carried over.
That's insane because most things in the marketing, in any area for that matter, are usually an evolution of something before it. And when you looked at what was before digital marketing, you had TV, you had radio, you still have those things today, but the systems that were in place for that, they didn't have a way to really hide it. You always knew how much of a commission you were paying on things. You always had access to the audits and what was rolling over and what wasn't. And so the fact that it's like implemented in this world and didn't kind of follow that remnant from the previous run, of course, there's some of it just blows my mind. Like I said, I think I live in a bubble and I just feel like there's no agency out there that actually does this. And it's just like a ghost story to me, but apparently there are.
I don't know if it started here, but within the agency world, I would have to assume that one of the first things that clients didn't have access to would be any sort of like proprietary CMS that they couldn't take with them. Now, again, as long as that is disclosed, you should know that if you do untether, that you're likely going to need a developer to redevelop that site. And I'm telling you that there are some agencies out there that still have a proprietary CMS. Beautiful design work. It's incredible. And it's just the conversation because just like lawyers,
I think I know those agencies that you're talking about.
Yeah. And that's just, hey, listen, if you do part ways, just know that the other agency might not be able to replicate that design exactly how you see it today. And B, you've got to pay a developer to take all those files that they send you in the zip to recreate a functioning website. So as long as you know that going in, right? Like just disclaim it so that there's no surprises in the future. And even still, Al, like I've given that exact spiel to firms and they're like, I still want to go with that one. I'm like, all right, you can, no problem.
There's people out. I know some really substantial law firms that use agencies like that, like working with agencies like that, because for them, it becomes out of sight, out of mind. And as long as my numbers are good, I'm good. Right. And God bless them, because like, as a guy that I was in house for so long, I couldn't. Like I cannot operate in this system because like even if the founder owner of the firm I worked at wanted to work with one of them, we would have had a fight. I'm like, no, I like visibility. I like to get into things. I like to check things. I like to hold people accountable. And I probably wouldn't have been able to stay there if we worked with one of those agencies.
Yeah. And some of them do great work. It's just, you got to know what you're getting into.
All right. Wait, I saw another post where you talked about legal directories. Here's how law firms should think about paid legal directory profiles and guaranteed placement listings. And that one caught my eye because I had actually a couple of clients recently that just forwarded some things over to me. Like, hey, what do you think about this? And I know what I think about it, but I always love hearing different takes. And so tell me a little bit about the legal directories from your point of view.
Well, everyone will reach out when there's the nomination or selection period for super lawyers, and they're like, should I buy this profile? So I think you've got to separate the difference between what the profile is versus the premium or guaranteed placement listings on all of these legal directories. Another thing that everybody should also realize with the recent internet brands acquisition over a fine law, that all basically of the major directories are now owned by one company. So they've released some of their new products. I don't know if you've gotten wind of their authority suite, where they're now bolting on the fine law, law info directories into the package, but you can now get all of those on top of Avo, martindalelawyers.com as well. So, you know, I think for the profiles, they are a great protective measure on branded search, especially if you have been nominated to something like Super Lawyers or Best Lawyers, because they do show up very frequently and prominently on the
Yeah.
search page results. Okay. You've got to do your own searches to see whether or not that profile is visible, to know if you should be investing the $100 to $200 per month for that profile. But my take is, if someone searches Ron Latz lawyer, New York, and if Super Lawyers and Avo are showing up, I'm probably going to pay the piper, pay for Super Lawyers, and I'm probably going to pay Avo as well. One being, I get an enhanced profile. Aesthetically, it looks a lot better. And then secondly, once you pay the piper, they miraculously drop off all the competitors that are being advertised on your profile as well.
Yeah.
There's some other benefits, but we'll keep it pretty high level here.
What's your general thoughts about, like you mentioned, doing your brand search and they're popping up for it, and so you're going to go ahead and pay the piper. And do you recommend playing the brand game when someone searches your brand and all these other brands are showing up, or would you rather put that money into more direct case acquisition, hoping that the person that searches for your brand still knows how to find you through all the clutter?
Yeah, that's going to depend upon like what your goal and objective is in the maturation of your firm. If you are much more sophisticated and you've been investing in brand for a while, you don't need cases tomorrow to keep the lights on, and you can sustain a long-term investment and know that through data and your CRM that the majority of business comes through direct or brand search, then sure, I would make an argument that we would continue to bolster on those types of investments so we can protect ourselves from branded queries, right? We want someone showing up looking for us to find us every single time, you know?
Interestingly, I was listening to something recently, and it got me thinking about like more trade name law firms, your top dogs and trade names like that, versus founder owner name law firms.
Mm-hmm.
And because I never loved doing brand, always spent some money there. Granted, I had the pleasure of working with a brand that we built out quite substantially, and was built out substantially before I even got there. But I looked at it a lot of times as a waste for a couple reasons. One, anytime we did a test, and especially when Google decided to turn on everybody's brand LSAs and you had to go and turn it off. Yeah, by default.
Prize.
One inadvertent thing that Google taught us with that was that 90% of the people that are searching for our brand are our clients, right? Already our clients. And so I'm like, okay, well, if my client accidentally makes their way to another law firm, well, they're already signed on retainer to me. Chances of me losing, it's so tiny, right? And if anything, there's an ethical issue there. So it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't want to do the brand. But then also, it just pisses you off, and you're like, but what if I am losing something by not bidding on my brand? So I created like certain thresholds and throttles in place where I didn't want it to go over a certain amount. Mm-hmm. And so I've fought that battle for a long time, and I still am undecided exactly where I want to be with it, unfortunately.
Well, you can,
but I lean more towards just, if I have less money, I don't bid much on my brand or do much quote unquote brand protection, because my hope is, as the people searching my brand or my former clients, also even if you're a larger brand, you're doing giveaways, so people are searching for your name. You got every vendor in the world is searching for you and trying to sell you something. You're getting so many branded searches that have nothing to do with what you do.
Yeah.
And always fought that battle. So I guess I still fight it to this day and see the pros and cons.
Yeah. I mean, depending upon our client's marketing mix, how much out of home and billboard, like, do they have? Is that driving up the cost of those clicks? I want to compare it to Google Ads branded clicks to see, how much above or below we are on LSA, direct search, right? So there are some levers that you might be able to pull, or at least data sources that you could check to see if this is still within reason.
Yeah.
But
I was talking to a friend who works for a substantial law firm, and she was mentioning that they were spending 6 figures a month on their brand. I was like, no. I was like, on Google, reduce your bids by 75%. You're still going to get the majority of them. And
you're giving Google a lot of extra money.
Yeah. And they ultimately did it. And at the owners didn't want to do it because they could see the tit for tat between with the track through.
Yeah.
And sure enough, this is what makes me lean towards not doing too much brand is Google Search Console. Guess what goes up? The branded clicks to their organic branded clicks to their website goes up substantially. What happens to their caseload? Nothing, stays the same. And when that happens, I'm just like, well, ultimately the thing that is driving my final decisions are the long-term trends in my case data. Right. And what that's telling me. And if I'm continuing to maintain or grow, well, then it's telling me that collectively things are working pretty well for me.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right. What else we got, Ron? We got which marketing channels are producing signed cases and at what cost? Do you remember that one?
I don't, but is it about how all marketing works, and don't listen to your buddies at happy hours and conferences because you're missing all of the context?
Yeah, that's the basic question that a lot of firms initially approaching us are unclear on. They think they know how many or at what cost and what percentage qualified opportunities are closed, but in reality, they don't. And so I think it was speaking more along the lines of trusting basically their last touch attribution. Ron, you there? Testing.
Are you still there, Al?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. I lost your video, but I can hear you. We'll just have to cut it out in post-production.
Hey, sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Technology, man.
We just glitched out right there.
Live. We keep it rolling. We're live.
We keep going. Yeah. So what do you think about last touch attribution?
I think that there's an obsession over it. And instead of looking at all the signals that you can pick up throughout the life cycle, they get tunnel vision on this last click and forget all the qualitative data.
Yeah. So, and luckily, I think the tide is turning on that. Enough people are talking about the BS tracking. And I think it's just over the years, people getting more and more pissed off with Google and realizing like, okay, I shouldn't hang my hat on what Google's saying because they're trying to take credit for everything. And for me, a prime example of that, done when I was in-house, did so many things with PMax, just testing. And it was always, man, PMax is amazing. It is killing it. Low cost per cases, low cost per clicks, all of that. But we would then put in, and one of the other posts I liked was qualitative versus quantitative data. We put in the qualitative data. And how'd you hear about us? Why'd you hire us? Where are you located? Right. And we find out that, okay, well, this PMax case that came from market A that tracked back to PMax said they hired us because of the TV spot, and they're actually in market B somehow.
It's like the same prospects, Al, that go and tell the firm, I saw your TV and your billboards. And it's like, we don't have TV or billboards. Right. So it's a conversation. I'm not saying that. I think I say something along in that post that you don't go and ask them like a dozen times, how'd you find me or where'd you hear about me? Right. But you've got to be thoughtful. You've got to be empathetic. You weave those questions in during an intake or a console to pick up more signals, because your tech attribution is going to likely pick up your first or last touch, however you have configured it. Meanwhile, they heard about you from John Doe. You were at the podcast. You sponsored the 5K. You've been involved with the turkey trot. And it's like, well, this is just what captured your demand, right? So we look at it from a blended perspective, right? All the dollars up top over the cases, there's our blended cost per. And now we know how healthy we are. And then we look at the CRM for channel by channel metrics to understand return and acquisition costs on search or LSA so that we can look at it from either an agency account or just general marketing performance perspective.
And I wish more firms did that. The global blended average across everything they're doing. And then that gives you the ability to ebb and flow, test and do these different things and look at the long-term ramifications of them and see if it continue going the right direction. Because ultimately, a lot of these decisions, yes, a lot of them are going to be based on tried and true things working historically, but a lot of it's also going to be based on gut. And that's one thing I can tell you from running a 8-figure marketing budget for a personal injury law firm for so long, that the things that made us the best in our markets usually started with just our guts. We've been doing this for so long and we're so entrenched in it. What do we think the real story is, no matter what the data is telling us, and no matter what even sometimes the market research tells us, because it could be saying one thing, but it really meant to say something else. And so, ultimately, and for PI law firms, man, it's just it's such a crazy world. A little different when you start going into some of the other practice areas. I love doing mass tort marketing and just pounding social media and just going like, look, like this is a direct connection. This is the only thing that's happening. And now you got 1,000 claimants, right? That's a lot easier to justify, because you could justify it in the short term and not just the long term.
I think a lot of firms struggle with that. And I wish that they had that type of outlook on marketing, because there is a lot of experimentation here. And most firms are quick to jump to say that campaign failed, but they forget like the lessons that they learn going through that process is only going to help the setup for the next initiative and then the improved results on that. It all came from what you considered like a non-success or a failure. It's just, and then, internal resources are evaluated based off of that. And then that's where the whole mess comes into play. And it's like, oh man, we're missing it, guys. We're missing it.
One thing I want to loop back to that you said that it made me think of something was, you saw your TV spots, your billboards, or your radio, right? And it's like we've either never run that or we haven't run it in years. And this is a conversation I have with many law firms when they get scared about the competition. I'm like, the funny thing about more competition in your market is there's a higher percentage of the population that is going to hire a personal injury lawyer because it's more visible than in a low saturated market. Don't get me wrong. I love marketing in a lower saturated market, and there's still plenty of them out there that you could do it successfully and own it for pretty cheap. Amazingly, there's still some you can do that with. But, I was in some of the most saturated markets in the country, and the claimant rate out there was double, triple some of these other places. And that it goes back to, it's because there was an old head back in 1982 that started marketing for personal injury, and the money started flowing. People started understanding what personal injury lawyers do, when you should contact them, why you should contact them. And it became part of the process in certain areas, where in other areas it's not that yet. And so when people get worried about certain law firms coming into their market, I go, well, just remember, people are going to be more educated than ever and are going to change their habits to be more likely to contact a personal injury lawyer. And there's still going to be those that don't want to contact those guys. And so you need to insert yourself in there and make sure you're not losing it to them. And yes, your cost per acquisition is going to go up. I'm sorry. It's just, so does the cost of your groceries. So does the cost of a new car. So does the cost of a house. Everything goes up over time.
Yeah, it does. It will continue. And it's very, that's something else where if you are in a market where there are more entrants and more competitors, and they are informing that audience, making them more educated consumers about legal services, like it's going to increase the amount of individuals that if they want to hire a lawyer, they're going to give the lawyer a call, and it's good for everyone.
Well, Ron, when should a law firm contact you in Legal Phoenix? Where in their journey does that usually happen?
I mean, most firms come to us when they're feeling a little lost. They don't have a stronghold on their strategy. They feel like maybe their vendor makeup or their mix of partners that they are working might not be, producing the results that they initially had expected. They're trying to expand or build an in-house function. So there's a lot of reasons why some firms will, reach out to us, including our neutrality, right? They do want an unbiased perspective to say, hey, I know you're not going to sell me this stuff, but I need help being pointed in the right direction. So there's a lot of different entry points as to why they would start the conversations with us. But at the end of the day, a lot of the firms they want to sit in the legal seat. They want somebody else to be responsible for developing strategy, managing and collaborating with vendors, being a resource and like actually talking marketing shop with in-house marketers and give them the time and attention that they deserve.
Yeah, so I was wondering about that. Like if it was a law firms of certain sizes, or do law firms that even have people in-house also have y'all come in and consult with them?
Yeah, that would be a preference, Al. Like I want to have someone else in-house internally, be like the feet on the ground when we're talking about sponsorships, community involvement, because it's not the lawyers that are going out there for the most part, right? They might be the face on social to promote the event, but I want to make sure that we do have other people that can help support the efforts, because when you get called to trial, you got to go to depths, you're in consults, you're running the business. Marketing and all the other things is what unfortunately hits the wayside. So we would prefer that they have some level of marketing resource internally.
Okay, perfect. Well, if there's one thing you can leave an attorney, a law firm owner with today, what would that be?
Watch out for all this AEO, GEO, snake salesman stuff that's out there right now. I would follow some of the, even non-legal voices out there like a Lily Ray, Kevin Indig. Like there's great resources and people that aren't just tied to legal, that are talking about what is going on right now, looking at data that is significantly larger than probably any firm out there, because they're talking about enterprises and commercial organizations, just to see like how all this stuff is changing. So just like do your research, do your due diligence, make sure you're collecting context from people when you're asking them about the next greatest thing, because I bet you there were a lot of other complementary efforts that were helping support that initiative that you're like, well, I'm going to start from scratch here and go and launch it and expect the same results. So just
those are wise words. And ultimately, I think it leads to something we've been talking about, and that's your whole marketing ecosystem that's building your brand, that's counting on your brand and growing that over time, because AEO, GEO, AIO, whatever the acronym of the day is. One thing I have found that I like about Google is they continue trying to improve the experience for the user, and the firms that have just tried to, invest it well, built brand, and tried to do the things that are just inherently good marketing, being talked about, having mentions, right? Those firms are benefiting right now from a lot of the AI search and all that, because now all of a sudden there's more credit lent to just general mentions of your brand, even if it's unlinked, right? And good marketers, that's what they do. Their goal is to be talked about as much as possible, to get as much attention as possible, and turn that attention into relevance, and turn that relevance into cases. So no, I like that you brought that up. And Ron, I appreciate you jumping on with me today. If anybody needs fractional CMO work, Ron runs a great shop over there at Legal Phoenix, and should certainly consider him for that help and that guidance where they may feel a little ill-equipped or unprepared for. So Ron, I appreciate everything, and thanks for joining today.
Well, thanks, Al. I appreciate the invite, and keep active. I like seeing you in the feed out there.
Awesome. Appreciate it.